What's good, everybody? Remember 17 here, and before I upload my whole pros and cons on the UFC 5 closed beta that's getting worked on right now, I wanted to give you guys a quick little update or something that you guys may have missed when you guys were playing the UFC 5 beta. So a big thing with the UFC 5 beta is that a lot of things were missing from the beta in general, and these are the things that we should be expecting at launch, and I'm going to kind of basically reiterate the stuff that's being said here. So in the UFC 5. So I'm just going to read it out to you. I have it close up so you guys can see it, but I'll just read it out to you. So for those of you who are participating in the UFC 5 closed beta, there are some important things you should know while you are playing. The build you will be playing will not be the most current build when it comes to certain areas of gameplay. Most notably, there are several gameplay improvements that were mentioned in yesterday's deep dive, referring to the Martial Mind deep dive that they did on the EA UFC channel, that will not be in this build. While the items listed below are not in the closed beta build that you will be playing, they will be present in the final build when the game launches. Now this, I would definitely would have helped if this was like if this was posted on the official EA UFC Twitter, because I just saw this today, but it makes it much more easier now, so people would have expected this when they were playing the beta. So when my criticisms are going to be almost pretty much everything here, but it's good that, we had this here for a couple days and we just didn't happen to notice it, right? So stamina and vulnerability changes for head movement mentioned on a deep dive. So in the deep dive, it was talking about more stamina costs for certain whiff strikes, certain vulnerability changes for head movement. So essentially things like you try to slip your way out of the jab, but for whatever reason, maybe there's input delay, there's a little bit of lag, the game is not going to punish you that bad for you basically turning what would have been a clean shot into a grazing shot, according to Yves Gomez. The footwork changes mentioned in a deep dive. Now this one of my criticisms of the game was that the leg damage didn't really show any footwork changes when it came to the opponent moving laterally. So the footwork changes mentioned in a deep dive. You're telling me that the footwork benefits to like the guys with higher footwork weren't even in this build? That's actually crazy, because if those of you who use Robert or Adesanya, yeah, definitely felt that. The ground stamina change discussed in the deep dive. What this is about is the short-term stamina drain and a couple other changes too. Those of you who aren't aware of negative GA, this is a thing that's been around since UFC 2, and negative GA is probably one of the worst things ever. If you guys have ever wondered why you guys are in certain positions, right, and you get denied one time and you try to build a lot of GA in a position and your transition is slow as hell, negative GA is the reason for that. Why that was ever a thing, I have no clue, but that is why positions like side control are busted. That's the reason why mount is busted. On UFC 3, tie clinch was super busted. Tie clinch against the cage was super busted, because all you needed was one denial, and as long as you kept successfully hitting the denial, it didn't matter if your opponent ended up getting full GA, because the transition would still be slow. It's just a weird thing, and that's something that needs to change, as well as the stamina change. The stamina change is going to likely be around reducing the short-term stamina drain on denials, because even with the closed beta and a lot of players that are able to realize that they're moving with zero short-term stamina, but it's not stopping them because they have a full long bar of long-term stamina, you're not basically worthless when you have zero short-term stamina. However, because of the super hyper focus of denials and people trying to camp positions for too long, which kind of detracts from, if you get into a strong position, is one thing, but it does detract from like the scrambling, being able to move from position to position. This is where the short-term stamina change is absolutely important in order to really make the ground game different from 2, 3, and 4, because that's where it gets real stale. You make a change like that, the game becomes less denial heavy. There are going to be more predictions, but you could create a lot more contextual transitions, create a lot more scrambles, a lot more things. Some submission entries are missing from the beta, and that the movesets assigned to fighters for the submissions are not final. So essentially, any fighter that we've seen here in the UFC 5 beta, it's not their full arsenal, right? Some guys are missing things, even takedown wise. Some guys are missing things there. Now this one, I'm pretty sure this is the typo. It says knee and elbow nerfs won't be present. That'd be a weird thing to say that it won't be present, because it should be present. But the knee elbow nerfs, it's basically like, it's going to be a nerf to the combo. It's pretty much clear it's there. I just don't know why it says won't be present, but it should be present. So that's kind of weird there. And then the jab nerfs. Now the jab, it's kind of like, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because a lot of good foundation for striking comes off of a good jab. However, it is important that by now we recognize that we're having like, you know, little half range jabs causing crazy block stun and making it harder for you to defend, and those really shouldn't have the same amount of strength. Same thing with jabs and combinations. You're able to get the same amount of speed while covering distance, whereas in real life, if you're taking a stepping jab, right, a long stepping jab to cover distance, you're not going to be able to really double it up that fast and cover the amount of distance that you're able to cover in game, especially when it comes to a lot of the forward frames, resulting in a lot of sliding, which is something that I would like the community to go and tell the devs, and as intelligently as possible, to tell them, hey, we need some more forward frame increase on whiff strikes, so people can't slide back out of range too quickly, because that's not realistic, right? So these jab nerfs, right, whatever they do for the jab nerfs, that's something what I'm going to be hoping for it to be around, because I've brought that up as a complaint multiple times, and that in itself is going to change a lot of the gameplay. There's already a couple strikes now that are working as better lead strikes, so not every strike has to be led with a jab. We see that in MMA, not everybody leads with a jab. It is just more of the higher end percentage strikes. So that's just a little bit of news of what to expect when the game drops. If you guys have pre-ordered the deluxe edition, you're going to get 3 days access on the 24th of October, and you'll be able to play the game early, then you stream the game early, etc., etc. And that's when these changes should be present. We're definitely going to be hoping that EA should be looking to do more patch notes, more transparency. They have been much more transparent than they have been in the past, especially with regards to how UFC 4 was. So the better that it stays in this direction, the better it is for the community, and we can get a lot more things across and more changes. Remember 17, peace out, much love, care for y'all.